Hi everyone. Today I'm bringing you a tutorial on how to make this lovely 3 beaded bracelet. The reason why I've decided to do this today is because I actually had an order for 2 and I thought as I'm making them I may as well show you how to do it too. So the first one I made was this lovely citrine beads with antique bronze, and the other one they want is one with moonstone. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to make these using moonstone beads and antique bronze wire. So to start off with, I'm using 6mm moonstone beads, so I'm using 2 of those, and I'm using 1 8mm one. You can use 3 stones, they're the same size, but I think it looks quite nice. It's quite effective when you do the 2 different sizes. The other thing you're going to need is a little clasp to finish it off, a jump ring which also finishes off the other side, and then you may or may not need a little bit of chain. And I'll explain why, because basically, if I show you this, so may not be a particularly small person, but my hands are really small, which means that my wrist actually isn't that big. And I made this bracelet totally based on fitting my wrist. Now, I've made that mistake before where I made a gift for my stepmom and her wrist just happened to be a little bit bigger. Luckily, because I'd made it for her, I could then go and add a chain to the back of it like I have here, and it just extends it that little bit. And you will come across this as a problem because as these 2 bracelets actually are, they're gifts for people, so you can't go away and measure someone's wrist and basically send me the exact measurements and I'll make it for you. So you have to do a little bit of a guesstimation, and what happens then is if they wanted to and it fit them properly, they could just take that little bit of chain off and just attach it to the jump ring. But if they needed it, you've got that little bit of extra give, so it gives you that little bit of extra length if their wrist happens to be just a bit bigger. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with 2 gauges of wire, as we always do, and those will be our 20 gauge wire in antique bronze, and then we need our 26 gauge wire. Now you'll also need a few pairs of pliers. This one is quite time consuming, it does take a while because of the weave that we're using and how neat we need to be as we go. So I've got my cutters to cut off my strands. I've got my needle nose pliers, which I might not use, but there's a possibility I might need them. I've got my flat nose pliers, which I definitely will be using because it makes it really neat and sorts out the edges as you go. And at the end, if I want to make a jump ring, I'll show you what we might need our round nose pliers for. But basically you need your cutters and your flat nosed ones for now. So to start off with, I know that I roughly need about 22 centimetres of wire. So 22 centimetres of wire because I need a little bit either end to give me that little bit of leniency to finish it off. And we make it all flat first and then we start to do the finishing bits. So to start with, this is using 5 strands of wire and a triangular kind of weave that I really enjoy. So I'm going to measure my wire, and it doesn't matter if you're a little bit over. It's probably better to go maybe 23 centimetres just in case. You don't want to not have enough. If you're lucky enough to know the wrist size that you're making it for, great, because that does really help and you might not then need the chain. I would suggest you just add an extra pattern in either side if you need to make it longer. But for me, what I do is I do, I'll show you this, I do 11 of my triangle shape, and then I add the beads in a different way, and then I do 11 more. So if you need to make it a bit bigger and you know the wrist size, you can do 12, you can do 13 on either side. But if you don't, you can do the 11 like I have and just add this chain in to give you the extra length. So we have to cut 5 strands of this 20 gauge wire. So as you may know by now, the higher the gauge, the thinner the wire. So our 20 gauge wire is approximately 0.8 millimeters. And our 26 gauge is 0.4 millimeters. So I need 5 strands of our 20 gauge wire, all cut to a similar length, but we are going to cut the excess off at the end. So what I want to make sure of before we start is that all of my pieces are quite nice and straight, because this is quite a delicate bracelet. You really notice when things go a bit wonky. So I try my very best to have nice straight wire, make sure that it isn't going to bend out of shape as we go. What I'm going to do as well, because I have to do 11 triangle sections, I'm going to put a timestamp in the video for you in the description, and then you can jump to the next section if you don't want to watch obviously the whole thing of me doing 11 of those. And yes, if you do like what you see, please do subscribe to my channel, because I add different videos every week giving you explanations and tutorials on how to do all things wire wrapped. So if you enjoy what you see, then do subscribe, and I look forward to introducing you to more ideas. Right, so now I've got my 5 nice straight pieces. I want my 26 gauge wire. We don't have to cut this because the whole thing just is created with one long piece. But as you may have found when you're working, sometimes it goes shooting off the reel. So we just need to make sure that it doesn't do that, because otherwise we get into a tangle. And once the wire is tangled, it very easily breaks. It's not a major disaster if it breaks, but to be honest with you, you'd rather it didn't, because it's harder to fix the join basically. So now we begin. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start by probably leaving about 2 centimeters, maybe even 3, 2 centimeters, I think 2 centimeters on the end to give me that enough wiggle room to finish it off. And I wrap it just a couple of times around this first wire strand, as I call them. And we begin by doing our triangular weave. So I don't like to hold all 5 at the same time because it can make it a little bit tricky. So what I do is I make sure that they all line up, and I add 1 at a time. So we then go around both wires. Then I bring in my 3rd wire, and again go around all 3. Bring in my next one, and go around all 4. And what you want to do is try and keep the tension fairly even. If you pull too hard, you're going to end up warping it, and it's going to end up with a wiggle, and we don't want that. We want the top and the bottom strands to be really straight. So you've got to just have a little practice on how hard you need to pull it and how you need to place them, and then you should get the hang of it and have like a nice neat pattern. So I've added my 5th wire, and I've gone all around the 5th one. I'm going to squash this down with my flat nose pliers because it makes a huge difference. And then we need to make it all nice and neat by squashing them together. So I use these to gently squash it together. If you do it too hard and you slip, you could take some of the coating off, and then it ends up looking a bit damaged. So just be very careful that that doesn't happen. And then I go back on the 4 strands. Well, they can get a bit crossed over sometimes, so we just need to neat them up. The 3 strands, 2 strands, and 1 strand, and that creates our pattern. Now, as you can see, that's not very close together, and there's a few little lumps and bumps, so that's why these are absolutely perfect for squashing down and pulling together. So I've squashed it all flat and I've pulled it together so that it makes this really neat, lovely pattern. So what I need to do now is I need to continue with 10 more of those right the way along. So I'm just going to keep going with that one, and you can always jump to the next section once you've done your 11. Or you can continue to watch so that you get it right. And I'm just going to keep going. So you're wrapping it around the 1 strand, then the 2, then the 3, then the 4, then the 5, right the way to the top, and then you work your way back down and you've got that triangle pattern. And what I recommend is always picking up, once you've got to the top, picking up your flat nose pliers and just squashing it down each time. So you've done 1/2, then you do the other half and squash it down again. So just keep going like that, so that you know that you're going really nice and neat all the way along. And what I quite like to do is just keep making sure all my strands are nice and straight. So they will cross over sometimes, as you can see, but just try and make sure they stay nice and straight, because any kinks in there you really will notice with something like this. So I just keep running my fingers down them occasionally. Again, done that other half now, and I can squash that down. So only 9 more to go. So I will continue with that, and then I'll show you how to add the beads. You can experiment with this a little bit and change it. It doesn't have to be exactly like this, but this is just the way I've found is easiest to add the beads and make it look pretty. So you can either copy it exactly or do a bit of an experiment with your patterns. So squashing that down and moving it in. Didn't need to move it in too much with that one. Right. And I will continue. You can get a little bit faster once you know what you're doing, but you don't want to rush it too much, because then that's when it can all go a bit wrong. Got a little tangle. You want to make sure that you undo these tangles as you go along, because if you don't, you'll end up your wire breaking, and this would be bad. Right, so I've fixed that. Now I continue along. And the more wires you add, the fiddlier it gets. It definitely gets fiddly. So what I want to make sure of is that I'm staying straight. So I don't want to pull it too hard and have it kink and change shape. So I've done 4. I'm gonna keep going. and squashing down that half and continuing on. I have actually done a tutorial recently on how to do this weave specifically, along with 2 others. So if you do want to just practice the weave, you can take a look at that video as well. Always happy to have comments and likes. If you want to leave me a comment, I always answer back. Even if you have any requests, anything you want to know, you can always leave me a comment and I'll see if I can make you a video for it. So we're on number 6, we're getting there. It is a slow process, it's not a really quick, easy one. There are a few videos I've done that are kind of simple bracelets and quick bracelets, so I'm just coming away from the board a minute because I'm tangled again. Got to make sure I untangle myself. Come back to the board. You'll find with different wires as well that some are softer than others. So I'd say the copper wire that hasn't been coated, and this is the only explanation I have for this, if it hasn't been coated, it seems to be a lot softer, which means that the coppered coloured wire, because it's natural, is a lot softer, and then you find that it warps more, so it's not necessarily as easy to use. The antique bronze is probably the next up because it's been coated, and then the silver plated ones do seem really a lot harder than the copper one. So you'll find that although the harder the wire, it's harder to bend, it's neater when you're doing it. So it's up to you. This one I'm making is requested to be an antique bronze, hence why I am showing you. But the one that I made in silver was a little bit easier. So, squashing it down as I go, as always. How many have we got? I think we've got 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep. 4 more to go. And then I can show you what we do next. Trying to speed up a little bit now just to get this part done. A little bit of a frog in my throat. Right. Apologies if I move off the board sometimes. I have a little tendency to drift off and bring it closer to my face. So I try to remember and bring it back so that you can see everything that I'm doing. So neat that we've got that going. Really nice and straight lines either side. Nearly pulled that one out then. Just push these back down a bit. So what you can see is we actually end up, this has moved and I need all of that wire to finish it off, so I have to make sure I pull it back down again, so that I can finish it properly. So there we go. It's all nice and straight again. Now just keep checking on it as you go. Now we'll continue. Nine, we've got 2 more to go. And then I will show you how to add these beads. Kink again. I need a little bit more wire, so I reel off a bit. Make sure I push this through so I don't end up losing it. Right, like that. And yeah, one more. Almost there. So, as I said, you could add 12 each side, maybe. I wouldn't go 13, I think that would probably be too big, but 12 each side would just extend it and make it a little bit longer. But I find that 11 is quite a good judge of how big the bracelet should be. But if you know the wrist size, slightly easier. Okay, so I've got my 11, squash that down. Really nice straight lines there. Just pull these back down again because I need all of that for later, finishing off my bracelet. So now what we do is we want to start adding the beads. So on this one, I actually just did 2 loops all the way over. But what I quite like is this little pattern in the middle. So I'm actually going to do this one slightly differently. And I'm going to wrap around each individual one, and then I'm going to start a different weave to add the bead on. So I'm going to do this bit first. So I'm going to go around this one, and then I'm going to come back on myself all the way up. You'll understand what I mean in a minute. Is I'm going to go over the top and through on that one, and then I'm going to go over the top and through on the third one, like so. And then I'm going to go over the top and through on the 4th one and on the 5th one, just like so. So we've got the start of where our bead is going to be added. So that, then I'm going to bring the wire back down across the back, and I'm going to start our weave. So what we want to do is we want to part the bottom 2, keep that central one, and then we want to part the top 2, because what's going to happen is as we weave, we want to twist the wire around the bead. So I've done those 5 little things just to do a little cut off point. And then what I'm going to do is another weave that I enjoy is what I call, this one I've used 5-3. Another one I've done a tutorial on is a 2-4. You can do any combination you like really, but this works quite nicely for this bracelet. So what I do, I call it a 5-3 is because I do 5 wraps around the bottom, around the 1 strand, and then I do 3 wraps around 2 strands. And what we have to do is we have to do that across the bottom, and then we have to take the wire back and bring it back over to do the other side. So we're always on just one continuous loop of wire, and all it does is on the back here, you can see it just leaves a little loop. You can push it down and it hides it away, and on the front you can just about see this one little strand, which actually just adds to the prettiness of the bracelet, because it is all hand woven. So, you know, just to have those little extras doesn't matter too much. So what I do is I do 5 around the bottom, 1, 2, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I do 3. So 1, 2, and 3, and I use my pliers and my fingers to push it down and do this, squash it down so it's nice and neat. Now I'm pulling this out because what will happen when I put the bead on is it needs to curve back around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2 more of these little 3s. So we'll do a 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, push that right down so it's really neat. 1, 2, 3, and then we want 1 more set of that, and then we finish with another 5. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I will do 1, 2, 3. So we've got 3 sets of 3 down the center there, and we finish with a 5, and that is long enough to go around the bead, and then we need to pull the wire back and do exactly the same on the other side. So I'll finish off with the 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then we get our first bead, which is our lovely creamy kind of bluey white moonstone, and then we're just going to use our fingers to manipulate the wire so that it sits around it and then rejoins that straight one. See how I've now bent it around so that it rejoins the straight wire that the bead's attached to, like that. And then we're going to bring this wire across the back, right across the back of our bracelet, and we're going to start. Don't pull too tight because it won't then link up to that section, and I want it to go right up to that section nice and tightly, but so that it doesn't keep moving away. And we start with our 5 wraps, and we do exactly the same process on the top wire. So we do 5 across the top. We need to pull it out a bit more because it's again going to curve back around. So how many have I done? 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, so we've got 5 there, and I'm pushing it. I'm trying to make sure it pushes right in to the last bit of weave that I did, because we don't want a gap. And then I will continue with my 3. 1, 2, and 3. It can get rather fiddly, wiggle around a bit on you, but just use your square pliers again to push it right in so that it all links up beautifully. And then remember what we did on the other side was 3 sets of 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of 5. So that's what we're going to do on this side. So I'm just going to continue with that. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then we do 1, pull it nice and tight so that the wires connect. I'm going to use my pliers again, because what I want to make sure I'm always doing is pushing it up to the other weave so we don't have any gaps, and making sure that it stays flat and straight. So we make this in one beautiful long straight piece, and then we curve it to fit the wrist. So I need one more set. I'm going to do that. 1, 2, 3. No, that's 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, and then we need to finish it off with another 5 on the top strand. So we'll go around there. 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now what we're going to go, what we want to do is make sure that it's all sitting really nice and flush. I can squash it down so it's nice and straight, push that bead back into place, and then I've got to bend this top wire around that bead so that they all then join back together again, like so. So that is our first bead added. So now to connect these all back together, what we want to do is what we did on this side. We did the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right the way across to pull it really nice and tightly back together again. So I'll do that now. And then we can add the 8mm bead. So what we did just then was we added the 6mm, because we've got the 2 6mm either side, and then we've got the 8mm that sits in the middle. So we need to actually do a little bit of a longer weave, but it's the same, it's exactly the same pattern. We just make it one extra to fit around the slightly bigger bead. So I've brought that all back together using that pattern. Just gonna wiggle it around a bit to make sure that it sits nicely. Push it all in. There we go, that's better. And it looks kind of like a little eye, doesn't it? Right, so the next thing we're going to do is in between each bead, I want another triangle. So I'm just going to do that same process again, just one triangle in between. Same process we used before. And again, things start to go a little bit wonky sometimes, so you just need to make sure you're pushing it all in, keeping them all, sorry, I've come off the screen probably, pushing it all down, making it all beautifully neat. So that is halfway there. And again, push that down, give it a squeeze. Make sure you can see each strand in between, because that's the part that's obviously going to sit here on your wrist. So it's going to be quite noticeable if you go wrong. So there is that. And then what I do is, again, I do this little one straight strand. So we go in the wrong way. Right, so we go once around there and just a loop around each strand again. So you don't have to do it like this. You could actually just do one big loop around all 5, but I find that this just secures it better. I think it just, and it kind of adds to the pattern. So I've now done that little section, and I want to add my 8mm bead. So I'm going to bring the wire back down, and exactly the same process, but I'm going to make sure there's 4 lots here instead of just 3. So I'm just going to work on that and add the bead and show you as we go. So we start with 5 wrapped around the bottom and then 3. And repeat that process another 3 times. So that's 5. And then 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to keep getting my flat because it starts to bend and twist out of shape a little bit. But if you keep focusing on it and coming back, you can make it really nice and straight like this. So I want to do 3 more of those. So that's 1 set done. Bring in my pliers and so I've done 3. I've just got 1 more to do because I want it slightly longer. Take out all these little kinks from my wire because it will be noticeable if you have lots of kinks in there. So bring that back. So that's exactly what we did on the last one. We just did the 3, but we want this to be slightly bigger. So we're going to do 1 more. Like so. 1, 2, 3, and then we finish this with another 5 around the base wire. 4, 5, just like that. Right, so that is now just slightly bigger, and I'm going to add my 8mm very pretty moonstone bead and just manipulate that again with my fingers, trying to bring it back so it meets that central one that the bead's sitting on, nice and flush. So that central one stays really straight. And then we're going to bring that, as we did before, across the back of the bracelet, up to that last weave we did on this side. And again, start that off with our 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and yeah, that's about right. We've got to try not to make sure the bead falls off, but we are almost halfway. I'll save about there. So again, we know that we made sure there were 4 sets of 3 along this one. So we'll do the same on the other side, just flattening that out a bit. That wasn't quite straight. So just keep using your fingers or your pliers just to keep pushing it down so it's all flush and sits really nicely. And then obviously once we've got this far, we just do exactly the same on the other side. So we add the other bead and then keep going to finish off. So what you could do is skip to the finishing section. I'll put another timestamp in there for you if you are happy and you know what you're doing. Happy for you to skip to the end for the finishing bits, but if not, then continue to watch so you can see how we add the last bead and finish off. So moving down. Right, so I've done 2 and I know I need 4. Keep going with that. Oh, cramp in the hands. 3, 4, 5. We've got 5, is that right? Sometimes I might have to bring it closer to my face so I can actually see what I'm doing. It's quite difficult to hold it down on the board so that you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to lift it up a bit so I can make sure I'm doing it correctly. Bring it up here. So you can see my face for a few seconds. And then we'll go back down. So I've done 3. I just need to do 1 more. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. So I'm pushing it down, make sure it's really nice and tight and flush, as I keep saying. And we just need to go back to the board, 1, 2, 3, and finish it off with 5 around that top piece. There. 3, 4, 5. And then what we're going to do is the same as we did on the bottom piece, is we're going to use our fingers to guide it around that bead and bring all 5 strands neatly back together again. So we're getting there. Bring that back together. And again, we're going to go with our 5 little loops to finish this bit off and bring the strands back together. Sorry, a little tickle on my face. Pull it nice and tight, this, because you want them all to link back together again as tightly as you can. There we go. And just wiggle it around a bit with your fingers, trying to make it as tight as possible. Flatten that out. Just going to move that out of the way. We don't want to be able to see that section across the back. And again, in this section, this is where we're going to put another triangle shape. Pushing it down with my pliers. I can see the shape forming. Did it go around the top? Ooh. So we're creating our triangle shape again, just in the centre. So I'm going to have to lift it up again so I can get it nice and tight and looking as I want it to. So we're off the board for a few minutes. bring it back to show you in a minute, just because I can't quite see what I'm doing. Right, so that's the next piece. We're nearly there. Yeah, so now I need to go round again on over each one to continue this pattern. If you forget a piece with this kind of thing, it's probably fairly obvious, so we need to try not to forget. So adding this in like so. So I've added that set of 5. You can see the continuation of that pattern. Now I need to add the final bead in exactly the same way as I added this one. So you can jump past that if you like, or you can watch me do it and see it completed. So 5 here, 1, 2, 5. Again, we need to pull these out like so. So it's got space to add the bead. And on that first one, we added just 3 sets, didn't we? So I've done 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so I've done out 3 sets, and I finished this side off as I did before with the 5. 3. Yeah. And then again, this has come off the thing. Right, I'm going to add my last and final 6mm bead, and you can see how this moonstone just shines. It's all rainbowish. It's really pretty. Right, and link that back like we did on the last one, and then we're going to bring this over as we did before and complete the other side. So I've done 1, sorry, 2, 3, 5. I just needed to bring it a bit closer to my face for a second so I can make sure I'm doing it right. I'll bring it back to the board in a minute. Right, here we go. So I need 1 more of this. Ooh, didn't go through the middle. Here we go. Right, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to do the next one of 3. Then we need 5 more, and then we can finish by doing our 11 triangles all the way along. Hopefully I'll be a bit quicker towards the end bit. Right. So I just need to squash that down. Right, so I'm making sure that I'm pushing everything down again. And I've got to finish off with what I did before, looping it over each strand just to finish off that pattern. And then we can do our 11 triangles all the way along and then finish it off as a final bracelet. So we're nearly there. There we go. So take my pliers, make sure that this all links together. I can just squash it down a bit, push it together, and I just squeeze it with my fingers a bit just to get the correct shape. And it's really starting to take shape now. Flatten it down again. To make sure everything connects. So I'm just going to hold that there for a minute. And now I'm going to start on my 11 pieces. I've crossed over a bit there. So bring that back. And so exactly the same process as we did on the other side. We're going to go through making 11 on this side. So you can time jump now. If you go to the into the description, you can jump to the end because you know how to do the 11, or you can continue to watch me finish off, because at the end what I'm going to do is just show you how to add the fastenings, as we call them, at the end, and to finish off the bracelet properly. So one is done. Hopefully it will be a little bit quicker to finish this off, because this bit is really time consuming, because we want to be neat. As you can see, we've probably got just enough left at the end. Once we've got the 11 triangles on the end, we've got just enough to finish off. So we've measured, not wasting too much, but it doesn't matter really. If you cut a little bit extra, it's probably better than not having enough. Right. Remember, when I've done half of a triangle, I always squash it down and bring it nice and close together, keep giving it a bit of a squash. Do the next half and do the same again, just to keep it all nice and flat. Bring it all together. It's slightly quicker because we're already on our fourth one. Find you get quicker as you go along, but also I'm not talking you through every loop, so I can just do it and show you at the end. Looking good. We've got 4 more to go, and then we will finish it. 3. I can make sure the tension's right now because I just know, I've got the feel of it and I know how it should be. Whereas you might want to take your time a little bit so that you don't put it too hard and end up getting little kinks in it, and it will be more noticeable. Let me bring this together, squash that down. Getting it a little bit tangled again, so I've got to give myself a little bit more wire again. And we carry on. So, is that in the right place for you to see, hopefully? This is a long process with this one, as I said before. It is a much more advanced bracelet than the one that I was showing you a while back, but it is really effective and it seems to be quite a popular one. I've sold quite a few of these, which is a good. Right, 7. And 8. Right, 3 more to go. Been a bit naughty there and done the whole thing before I've squashed it down. 2 more, we're almost there. Now I can show you how to finish this off. Ooh, that hasn't gone round there. Ooh. I need to give myself a bit more wire again. Running out. Let's do that. Oh, I feel like I'm losing my voice. Right. I'm just going to count again just to make sure that I've only got 1 more to go. Always double check. Make sure I've got the right amount. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, 1 more to go. 1, 2. Ooh, don't want that to happen. I've just bent that wire, so I need to just straighten it out again so I can finish this off. Right, so we are there. We've got our 11 triangles. We've finished off our bracelet. So look, we've got a lovely long flat strip there, all ready to finish off and turn into our bracelets. So what I want to do is, this is a little bit too much on the end here. I want to leave this attached because I'm going to use that to finish off the end, because I want to bend these over and attach our little hook, our clasp, but I don't want it to get rid of any of the pattern that I've created. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this a little bit shorter. So you see, hold on to the ends, remember, because they will go flying across the room. So I'm going to cut them all to the same length here. Ooh, missed one. There we go. So I've cut them all to the same length. And then I'm going to bend these all over about in the same place. Let me just bend them over like so. But again, I don't want the ends going way over my design. I want to shorten those again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to squash those down a bit. You can see what I'm doing. This is always the fiddly bit at the end. So I'm going to squash those down a bit, and I don't want these to be quite that long again. So again, I'm going to take my pliers. I'm just going to cut away, take my cutters, sorry, and I'm just going to cut away the ends so they're all even. You can see one shoot across the room there. This is what happens. Squash that down again. What I want to do is then, this is where I might need my needle nose pliers, is get the central one. So I'm going to have to bring it to my face again because I can't see what I'm doing. It's gone a bit dark all of a sudden. So, what I'm doing is I'm just lifting the central one back up a little bit, because that's the one that I want to place my hook on. That one there. I'll bring it back down to the board in a minute when I can show you. So I'm just going to slot this there we go, slot that onto the central one, and push them all down. So you've got your little hook added right there. And what we've got now is we've got this extra wire that we can wrap around and just finish off the end. And what we want to do is make sure we wrap it quite tight so that it covers all of the bits that you've cut off at the back there. So bring that in so you can see. I'm going to wrap it all the way around. As you can see, I've covered all the spiky bits at the back, so it's nice and flat. Just like that. And then I'm going to cut this off and find a place where I can tuck the end in, because we don't want it firstly coming undone, but secondly stabbing someone when they're wearing it. So I just need to push that into that loop, and there you go. We've got a lovely finish to that end. And then what we need to do is we need to take our other end and we need to get some wire again, and we're going to just attach that to this end so that we don't lose any of our detail again. Obviously they're all unusual lengths at the end there, so I'm just going to chop those off so that they're all straight. Holding on to it. Here we go. And move those bits away. This is where our little jump ring comes in. So we've got a little one already made there, but you can make them yourself. We're going to feed that on, and we are going to bend the tips over. Now that jump ring just fell off, but that's fine because I can put it back on again. So before you completely squash it down, we'll put our jump ring back on. And this bit I find so fiddly, drives me bonkers. I think the flat ones, so holding on, I'm going to bring this to my face again because I can't hold it down to the board and show you what I'm doing. So I am literally, all I'm doing is the same as I did on the other end. It's just flattening out those bits. This is being a little fiddly pain, I can tell you that. Finishing it is always always the trickiest part, I find. I think the weaving part's absolutely fine, and then you've got to try and finish it off, and it just drives me mad. Right, squash that down. There we go, got it. Haha, it's in. So this bit fell off. So what I need to do is just start wrapping that around just to finish it the way I did the other side. So bring that back down to you. I can tuck away that end in a minute, so I'm going to push that through and give that a wrap around just a few times just to secure the ends and flatten it down again. Don't know if you can see that on the board, so you'll probably be on my face at the moment. So wrap that around the end. You can do it quite a few times just to make sure it's secure. I'll take that bit off. And then I'm going to tuck this in. Tuck it around the jump ring just to give me a little bit of bringing it too close again. Sorry if you can't see it on the board and you're having to look at my face instead. There we go. Finish that off. So now we have our bracelet. What I need to do is just gently bend it into shape, like so. And that is actually complete, as you can see. But what we want to do is just add that little bit of chain just to give it a little bit of extra length just in case. So I've just got some antique bronze chain here. It just comes in a long strip. And I cut myself a little section. I've also got these little, what we call spacer beads, I think they're called. So all in antique bronze, all the same colour. So we've got our little extras there. And this is where I need my round nose pliers just to make a nice little, with my 20 gauge wire, I'm just making a little jump ring to add that little bead on. It just gives it an extra, you don't have to do this bit at the end, but it just gives it a little bit of an extra prettiness. So it's not just a chain hanging off. I just kind of add this little ball to the end. Oh, I've just dropped the jump ring, found it again. There we go. So you're probably on me at the moment because I can't hold it up to the camera. I'm having problems because I can't see what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm just putting the little jump ring with a bead on the end of it onto the chain. So that's what the plan is at the moment, because it just adds a little bit of a pretty finish. So we put this on. See, sometimes things get really frustrating. I'm going to have to make a slightly bigger ring because I've just not done that big enough. Where have I put my wire? There we go. So I'll show you under here. Just do a little twist like this time a little bit bigger. It was far too small. Cut that off. Right, let's try that again, shall we? So I'm adding my tiny little spacer bead. There we go, we've got enough space this time. Onto our hook, onto our chain, sorry, not our hook. You can see that. Closing up that little jump ring that I've just made. And there you go, just has a nice little finish to it. And then I'm going to add that. This is probably a little bit too long, so I'm going to cut a few of these hooks off because we don't need them. Right, so these chains do actually open up, so I can just open that up and hook it onto the end. Ooh. How fiddly is this finish, huh? Ooh. I just dropped it. I'm having fun with this. So we will get there eventually. I just need to open it up a little bit wider so we can get it on. And finally, there we go. So I've added that chain on. We've got our complete bracelet. Chain is there. So this is what happens. Well, there's our other one, so we can add it to give us extra length. And there you have it. We are done. Oh, that end bit was a bit tricky, wasn't it? But I'm sure you'll find it just as fiddly as me. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button if you enjoy it. Subscribe, because I do add different videos every week, and I hope that it really helps you to become a fabulous wire wrapper. And I'll see you again soon.